And we are live. Well, fastest it went live I've ever seen. Um, anyways, nice bat mug. And I'll just quickly say for our listeners, welcome. I'm Joe from the Brothers Crin. And it's been a hot minute since I hosted what is honestly one of my favorite guests that I've ever had on a few times. Because Ulysses from Comics Odyssey is honestly, you're very charming and you're very funny, but I'm not trying to like grease you up or anything um, uh, or or suck up, but it's just your Substack is such a wealth of information on comics, on production, and even on the writing process and drawing process. And Spirit Girl is such a good comic. Um, like I'll be honest, one thing that I love about your is that you don't just show us how to make this, but you are good at it. And you're always nice and whatnot. And as we're both francophones, I kind of feel like there's a I hope you don't mind my saying I feel a little more connected to you than I do some of the other people on Substack because we have similar roots and in a religious and I guess national sense, even amongst Canadians, because fraternité extends even to those of us who are outside France. So that I always feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it's the same for you, but like, it's harder and harder to describe this in English. But it's like those of us in Quebec and Quebec who speak French in Canada, we share a certain fraternité, a certain bond that's hard to express and describe to outsiders. I'm not trying to make others feel like outsiders, but it's just the way it is. Um,
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't have agreed with you until recently when I started to learn more because, yes, I speak French and I'm Canadian, but um, I don't know if I'm, my side of the French Canadian, we never called ourselves French Canadians. We're Acadians. And that's like a
yeah,
very
what?
distinct and pretty, like, deeply rooted identity. So I always kind of assumed there was a separation between me and the Quebecers, but like the Acadians around me wouldn't have agreed. But I always felt I didn't really resonate with the Quebec culture and the temperament and the French stuff. But now that I'm reading more about early Canadian history, I'm understanding more like the historical through line between these different French Canadian strands, I guess.
Yeah, I always thought that Acadien, Franco-Ontarien, Quebecois, we were all kind of like one family. You know what I mean? Like that's at least how I perceived us. So it might be my naivete. But because my family was Quebecois, I was Franco Ontario. So like it's this very weird, you know what I mean, like background. So
Yeah.
it's something that I guess that, and I read the history, l'histoire des Acadiens, and I always thought, like it was, I don't know, I felt a certain connection to it on some level, and if I felt the French fear of, being deported or mistreated by the English majority of Ontario. So, um, at least when I was young, so that's why I guess the French heritage was always strong in me. So I guess that's why
Yeah.
I've never understood that sense of division from between them. But like I said, I just view all French speakers as family on some level. So
Well, there's a the main difference from what I understand between the French the Acadians and the French Canadians in Quebec is that the Quebecers didn't lose their war, whereas we had not a fighting chance in when
yeah,
the
sadly,
Colonials came to. It's just we were just peasants, right? And we had
uh,
no weapons or anything, and we just got bulldozed over, right? So I think that's like in the temperament. That's the main thing. And plus, Quebec has a border, but our nation doesn't have a border, and it's shared half and half with the Anglos. So we're still in Angle land, right? We're a bunch of French still in Angle land, so we're still living in the wake of losing that
Moment.
war, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so. We share the history at the beginning, right? The beginning of Canada, but I think that's a very important, uh, very important event, the deportation, to understanding the different French Canadian temperaments. I think.
And what's interesting is that now this might not seem relevant to the comic book discussion, but real quick, what I found is Spirit Girl, when I've been reading her, now I go down to the local bookstore all the time and I like to pick up bande dessinée. I have too many, expensive, but I still pick them up. But the thing with the bande dessinée storytelling style, because there's a particular style of story, like the French tell stories differently than how Anglos do. And what I've noticed in Spirit Girl is your style of storytelling is a lot more similar to that of in France, I've noticed, than it is to like the US. At least it seems to me. When I read Spirit Girl, I'm noting like, you're influenced by Tintin and whatnot, but I noticed not just that, but like little subtle cues here and there. I'm like, I feel like I'm reading a French comic book, but it's in English, not in French. You know what I mean? So it's just like it feels like an English bande dessinée, and I have to admit that adds to the attraction for me. But and so I think that um, for any French listeners or any English listeners intrigued by into the bande dessinée market, which is actually open to some Anglos, because I think there's one Englishman from over in England who's writing a bande dessinée right now. That's a bestseller. I forget which one. I knew a while back, but I forgot which one. I think it's fantasy or historic fiction. But what's interesting is that they just need to look at the comics Odyssey to, and even read Spirit Girl to see how you can do it. I think. So that's me just adding more plugging of Comics Odyssey in there. So, anyways, I sent you a bunch of questions. So I figured you could just plunge on in now into answering some and getting into like the process and what artistically and business wise of your comics and how you approach things.
Okay. So your question is how I approach things artistically and business wise. Is that right? Or okay. Hmm. How I approach things artistically. Well, so temperamentally, I'm more of an intuitive person. So I make plans, I make outlines and stuff, and I do try to know where I'm going. I do know the ending of the Spirit Girl story, so I know which direction I'm heading, but a lot of it's intuition. Um, I'll I'll be walking, and then suddenly, like the other day, I was just walking down the street, and I had this image just came into my head of some bikers flying a flag of one of the provinces in the the fictional land that I live in.
How it works from beginning to end.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, yeah. And but for some reason, I just knew in my head, okay, that's canon now. There's a biker gang in New Northland. Why? I don't know, but like I trust that kind of process, right? Eventually, it's so that's like artistically, I'm much more, and my artistic process is becoming more and more tied into my faith process, I guess. So I'll pray, and then I'll have like ideas come up during my
Same.
prayer meditation. So I guess I consider those graces. Hopefully, that's not presumptuous, but that's
It
kind of
isn't.
how I do it.
It's the same for me.
Yeah. So there you go. I don't. I'm not trying to aggrandize myself and say that I'm some kind of visionary mystic with
Yeah,
a
but
third
I'm going to
eye to
say
God or anything like that. But it's just that's how that's just how it's shaping out for me. And then yeah, so that would be like the general approach. And then business wise, I really don't think about it too much. I I'm not doing this for business at this point. I'm just doing it to get better and to tell better stories. Eventually, the business stuff is going to start cropping up. It's already started a little bit, like these
because
indications,
I don't
like okay,
really.
it's time to start thinking about business stuff. But really, I don't think about it that much.
So, um, I will admit I'm total crap at it. But for marketing, I don't know how would one go about marketing and promoting a comic like and whatnot, because that's the side of it that I'm also a little confused by. Now you're doing great on Substack from what I've seen, but when it comes to, and I think Henry is doing a great job with his crowdfund, like how he's going everywhere and marketing it and whatnot. And I hope to get him on my podcast on. I'm going to say for me it'll be Sunday. For him it'll be Saturday. But I'm hoping to get him back on, and we're going to talk comics, like mostly Conan stuff and whatnot, and use that to plug his comic. But I'm not sure because it seems like it's a lot harder to market than a regular book. I don't know if that's true or not, or if it's just me being a total noob at this.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never had to market a book. Henry would know more because he's been a novelist, so he would know the difference between the two. So maybe ask
Okay.
him about that. Marketing, um, if I have any strategy whatsoever, is to completely ignore this marketing and just focus on making genuine connections with people. My approach from the beginning with social media, and I've just leaned into this more and more, is I'd rather have 10 friends than 10,000 followers, because just
That's
that's my value. That's what I believe in. So the followers and stuff, I look at the stats on Substack maybe 3 4 times a year. I don't pay attention to them very much.
I have not been
Same
paying
with
attention to mine
yeah,
recently.
I just
I'm
try. I just go with what seems to be building relationships with other creators and people who seem loyal and interested in what I do. Just readers that aren't creators, and
because
I just try to express gratitude towards them, and it's the same
yeah,
thing. I don't get this idea of like, oh, there's certain strategies you have to do online and that
okay.
somehow are different than how to be a person in the world. To me, you, you don't forget the whole being a good person part when you're
Yeah,
doing
of course.
strategy, right? You try to be just try to be a good guy. Like if you can, just do your best, and then little bits and bobs. Like for instance, like marketing wise, like I'm terrible at thinking of headlines that are catchy. So I'll just put my trans- transcript in an AI and say, "Can you come up with catchy
I
headlines?"
just I just come up with the most clickbait title for it. Like I think I
I'm
put like
terrible
Johnny
at.
Depp's most haunting movie for the
Yeah,
Ninth
you're
Gate or
super
something.
good at that. Yeah.
Uh, like it was so corny the title, but people, it's my first successful essay in months, and but like I think I just like to first I just like to try to have fun. I'm not trying like not at this point. I don't like I've had people friend out on me from Substack, so and some stay in touch. I'm just trying to have fun right now. And if I build connections, I build connections. If not, I'm just having fun screwing around. And that's why I've been taking more requests. So people say, I want you to write an essay on this. Okay. And I do. And it's just for fun. But I think I've started to, I was advised to start writing at least once a week about um, the upcoming crowdfund for June or July so that I could build momentum towards that for the novel. And that was from Brian DeMeyer, who's a really nice guy and he's good at this promotion stuff. Um, but comics is something that I'll actually say what's kind of gotten me thinking about it is just I had not been thinking about it at all, like comics or anything, except on occasion when I tune into your podcast or just see you scrolling around. No, see your comments and notes and whatnot, your jokes and stuff, or you and Henry interacting. I'd geek out. Yes, Henry and Ulysses are the dynamic duo are on. But then I started getting more and more commenter websites from various readers. A few artists wanting to basically turn Brotherhood of the Gemstone into a comic or a web comic, and honestly, the thought never occurred to me. It never even entered my head. But that's been one of my more successful novels, with having, if I include Royal Road, web novel, and Substack, almost 10,000 readers, just popping in regularly almost. So it kind of crossed my mind that, when I interact with some of these artists, that maybe there is a different kind of market for it. But on the other hand, the problem is the prices I got cited shocked me. And this is one of the questions I sent you. It's just like I could not produce this on my own, but I always seem to run into artists who try to, I feel like they're trying to scam me because they cite me like $100 USD for a single page or something, or like $40, between $40 and $100 per page. But if you were to turn Gemstone into a comic, the thing is, it'd be a humongous, thing, because it's 1,000 pages as a novel. Second book's going to be 700 pages, and third book's going to be 400 pages. So it's this sprawling epic. And well, and I felt a little resentful because, why don't I cite you a price, and you should pay me for the honor of drawing for it, because I'm the guy who wrote it. Why do I have to, crack open all the profits just and impoverish myself for you guys? But on the other hand, I know some artists will judge that, but it's just, but I understand paying for an editor because that's to fix grammar mistakes and whatnot. I think that I don't understand why. I guess maybe this is naive or stupid of me, but why it's always the writer who must pay the price and the artist who gets the profits and none of the costs and none of the risks.
Yeah. Okay, so first, the writer can get paid too. You're getting paid in sales of the book, and
Yep.
then it's your story.
Yeah.
Right? So, like for instance, I have some ideas for some Spirit Girl stories that I will pursue our writers to write so that I can draw them, just to learn the experience. But in that case, it's my story, and I'm
Your story. Yeah.
work for
I
hire.
understand the commission work, but what I get annoyed about is these artists coming to me and saying you need to hire me to make this into your comic.
Right. So they're pitching a job, right? So it's up to you to decide if like you want to do that or not, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to work for free, so they're
No.
trying to get a job.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. And people hustle. They try to do that. As for the price, $40 to $100 a page, that's low considering the amount of time it takes to draw a page if you wanted good quality.
Yeah.
An artist who's got some hustle and some experience and works on it full time can draw about a page a day. So $100 a day is minimum wage, right? And these people, if they're doing it full time, they don't have health care, they don't have, they don't have
That's
anything
fair.
else, right? So it's
Like, I get that. I just also,
that's the rate.
yeah, I just find what I find odd is that when I tell them, no, I'm fairly broke myself, they always end up upping the price even more. And then I go,
Okay.
what are you
Well,
doing? You know,
you say no.
no, which I've pretty much said that to almost all of them. No,
Yeah.
because I can't do this. Um, but yeah, I know artists in the comment section are going to tear me apart, but it's just, I felt that I needed to say, like, to me, it seems like this should be a partnership. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
We,
that exists, where you get an artist who will draw the book pro bono, and the agreement is that you split profits thereafter. So the problem there, especially for a big project like this, is incentivizing work. So
yeah,
if you ask
and
Henry about it, he tried this, and he had two artists interested in getting on board with that kind of deal, and they both left before the project even started. So it's like you need a special kind of person who will
and
be able to do that, because if they're working on this full time, then that means
and
while they're working on your book, they're making zero money. So
yep,
the
and
pool of artists that
recognize
you're
that.
selecting from is very low at that point. And then, so you're going to need probably an artist who has a full-time job and working on this on the side. So you need an artist who's highly motivated for an extended period of time, and that means that your book's not going to get produced for a long time because they're only working on it a couple hours a day, right? Like if I were to get in on that deal
Yeah,
and you have 100-page book, I can produce about 2 pages a week because of like the rate at which I'm working on. It's going to take a whole year to complete this book.
before anything is made.
So,
Yeah,
and to
I
have like
just
the depth of character to stay focused for a whole year on something, on a project that isn't yours and you're not getting paid for it, it's there's not a lot of people like that, right?
no, there aren't. And but on the, how do I put it? Now, for one thing, I don't really think Gemstone's a great project to start with because it's too big.
Yeah.
No, there's certain projects that are too big. You don't start with that sort of thing. Um, on the same token, as a writer, I'm not getting paid, and I can't actually afford an artist for
Yeah.
anything really. So that's why I said, like, uh, I've also run into the situation when I have had the money where I put a few $100s on as a down payment, and I'm like, all right, we'll start with, you work on a few pages, and I'll pay you as we go and whatnot. And the artist has took the money and split. That's actually happened to me every time I've tried working in a comic. And when I try to say, hey, what did you just do? The artist blocked me, and I have no way of getting into contact. I've had that happen about 12 times. So that's why I'm like,
Yeah.
I side eye a lot of artists who come forward because I tend to go, you're, I don't trust you because inherently most artists I've met have scammed me. And now there's exceptions, like, there are exceptions. So as a writer, my stance is I am not seeing any profits on this, on a lot of bucks until down the road. Art is a very dangerous thing to get into from a financial perspective. You don't expect a return immediately. It's a long term investment, as you well know. And it's worst for us writers because no one really needs a writer. They need an artist or a programmer. That's typically how most people think. Um, in reality, I think writing is a particular skill set, much like drawing is. But the trouble is, nobody wants to commission writers for the most part. And so, my situation is I only have limited cash. So that's why I'm careful with artists because I've opened the wallet and trusted. And, you know, and like I said, it's just I've run into that problem. Of course, if you go the AI route, people will get angry and throw a fit. So you can't. That's not an option. So
Well, I mean, if these artists are doing this, they can't bitch about AI, art writers using AI. I mean, if you're if you're stealing people's money, and then you bitch about those people going to AI, I mean, of course they're going to, because the AI is not going to steal their money, right? So just don't
but
do that. Be a
yeah,
person of good character. Be a dependable artist. It's like it's like that's I'm considering like for hire of getting writers hiring me to write their comic, but you know I want to first know that it's 100% for sure something I want to do, because I don't want to get
yeah,
stuck in that kind of situation where,
and-
oh shit, I'm halfway through a project and I feel like crapping out. You know what I mean? Like, it's you have to
yeah.
build your reputation. Like, it's a job. You got to
Although
sit.
I Yeah, although I'm gonna actually say one thing with you, Ulysses. I don't think you should take any commissions like that because you're still building up Nordland and whatnot. So
Right,
that's got to get built up first. No, no. As a fan, I'm gonna say no commissions for you. No commissions allowed.
I'm not ready
Um,
for it. I don't think my art is quite up to snuff yet. I don't think that I'm in the
dude, those are
situation
fighting
where.
words.
Well, I mean, I'm getting better, but
Them's
yeah.
fighting words. But in all seriousness, though, like I said, it's um, so like I hope I'm not coming on too hard on artists. I'm not trying to shit on artists. I'm just saying I've had nothing but bad experiences, so I'm a little wary. But on the other hand, I am trying to recognize from an artist perspective, like you don't want to sink a year into a project, and then the writer says, "Oh, by the way, I won't be able to pay you at all." Well, what what's all that time spent on? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's something which I will actually admit I respect the crowdfunding route because that's people are able to get something for the artist to be paid with, but um, that's always a tricky thing to do. So
Yeah.
okay, um, now what was proposed to me was to use the web comic um, uh, model for business, which I'm not as familiar with that. um, from what I understand, the Japanese and Koreans will post stuff on their Patreon or something or a pay wallet, and then it comes out like sometime after. I think the paywalled one. I think that's how it works. I forget. Um, but that's where um, I'm kind of curious. What's the perception difference between web comic and actual comic? Is there none in the eyes of like those in the industry and whatnot?
Um, I don't know about that. I do know the effect it has on the medium, the scrolling mechanism versus the
Mhm.
page turn. Because in a comic like this, um, the page is king, right? Because you turn a page, you see the whole page, or two pages, right? And the page turn is important. This is so the bottom right panel becomes really important because that's the panel that pulls you into the next page, right? So you can play with that, put like mini cliffhangers on a bottom right panel so that it makes you want to turn the page, right? Um, on a web comic, the panel is king because it's pretty much one panel at a time, right?
Mm.
And you have no limit vertically as to like how tall the panel is. You could have one continuous panel that just keeps scrolling. Um, so and and I've read some web comics, and that's sort of the style, the approach I find to the storytelling is that more or less every panel is a cliffhanger in a way because they want you to keep scrolling and not get bored. There's only so many scrolls you're willing to do before losing attention. It's an
Mm.
attention span game, right? So your
Yeah,
storytelling becomes very like it's constant something. Whereas like in a
which
book,
is
there's
exhausting.
a little bit more breathing room, right? Because you have full pages that can be a little bit more ambient or chilled out, right? So the effect on the storytelling style, I find that's kind of the difference there. But in terms of like how it's perceived, I think I think a lot of times my impression is that people perceive comics as just trash for the most part, especially like unless you call it a graphic novel, right? Right,
Oh, here in
which is a
France.
comic book. Like I mean, it's a comic book with a different name, right?
Well, here in France and in Quebec, um, uh, the bande dessinée, the BDs,
Yeah,
are treated with a lot of respect and are like considered serious literature.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like almost the entire, like I go to a bookstore, it's a legitimate bookstore, but 2/3 of the store is devoted just to BD rather than to books and novels,
Yeah.
and like almost the entire store is just comics, as
It's a
what.
more American thing because of the Comics Code Authority in the 50s when they started cracking down on,
Mm,
violence and sex in comics and stuff. And it created this perception that comics are uh, like low class trash entertainment for kids that is corrupting children. So and then that created a whole storytelling style in the Silver Age in the 60s that was kind of
mm.
I don't know,
Well,
like it kind of reinforced that stereotype. So the whole genre of, and then the American comic book industry became heavily dependent on the superhero genre, which was associated with trash kiddie fare. So it's like for me, I don't care about those perceptions. I have no
yeah,
need to, for like the highbrow people to approve of me or anything like that. So that's I don't know, but that seems to be what the perception is.
yeah. Now I'm just gonna show you. Like I've got I've got this BD. Let me see. Is it volume two or no? It's volume three. Okay, I have all three of the volumes, and this is pretty much how like the BD works. Um, like this is Taita Chien. It's about jousting and duels and knights and whatnot,
Okay.
based on historic fiction. But um, the thing is, um, now I only show it because um, I think that um, uh, I think that when it comes to it relates to my question, and that's that. Uh, how do I put it? Now, I used to be an animation student, so I do know how to draw and sketch well. I'm just rusty. I've not sketched in a year. I should get back into that. I'll have to buy a sketchbook and just start going crazy. Um, but the thing is, um, let's say I was to get back into that. Now, when I was studying under Don Bluth as an animator, he used what he called the tracing technique, which is where you take an image of, let's say, a previous animation, like let's take Baloo, and you trace over the image when you want to have a character do that little dance in Jungle Book, and you
Yeah.
just trace, and then you can do the animation thing again, even without tracing later on, because you've traced it like 200 times or something, and you can close your eyes. He had me trace like a sword swing, a clumsy sword swing, when I was in class with him and I was able to do it like that. I still kind of remember how to do it because he had me do it a few times, which was great. I actually like that scene in Robin Hood. But the thing is, I then took that technique and took it to writing. And I've been trying to explain to people, much like how you explain your comic creative style, I've been trying to explain how Don Bluth's animation and writing style, like technique, works, where you trace over something else and you change it and you change it and change it until it's something different and it's yours. And now with that, because Don Bluth applied that also with writing, and I learned to apply it with writing when I was writing Gemstones. That I traced over a bit of Lord of the Rings, I guess you could say, and made it my own and combined it with my style. So that's completely and utterly different. But if I want to make, let's say, a comic, are there any comics you would recommend kind of tracing in a way? Not like, you know what I mean, like copying the image, but just the storytelling style or the panel style or whatever, using as a teaching guide for oneself. Is there,
Oh,
like, I know there's understanding comics you've recommended me, and I have the book. Um, I just wanted to know, like, because I often like to look at the actual, like I said, I look at Tolkien or Howard or Mark Twain, and I like to look at paragraphs, how they wrote the paragraph, and then write my own paragraph as a mirror, a different kind of image, like a mirror image. Are there any comics or BDs or anything that you would recommend reading and trying to study and use to teach myself?
yeah,
I don't know if I'm making any sense.
I understand. See if you can look up Alex Toth.
Alex
See if you
Top.
can find some of his stuff. Um,
Okay.
there's a guy who has a Substack, goes by Johnny Cannon. Is a big Alex Toth fan. He knows Alex Toth very well, a lot better than I do, and he explains why Alex Toth is particularly like a great
What's his
cartoonist. So
What's his
uh,
name?
Johnny Cannon. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so he's got a series just on deep diving Alex Toth and why he's so good. So that would be, and the thing with Alex Toth is that I feel like he's got kind of a neutral style that can fit a lot of different types of stories. So I would say, yeah, probably top Alex Toth, but it also depends what you're into. Like you're if you're wanting to do like a fantasy thing,
It
like
would be
horror.
fantasy. Everything
Yeah,
with me is fantasy or horror.
yeah. So fantasy, in the
And even
'70s,
horror.
fantasy was a big genre in American comic book market. You had Conan, Sword and Sandal type of stuff. You had Warlord, Mike Grell. He's a good artist. You had Aryan, uh, King of Atlantis, or something like that. You had quite a few fantasy titles that were big successes. So out of that, Mike Grell, Frank Frazetta. Frank Frazetta is
Yep.
like the
The top dog.
American fantasy artist. Like when you think of fantasy art, a lot of your mind picture is informed by Frank Frazetta. Like
I
you have
love him.
oh yeah, he's amazing. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, good luck pursuing the greatness of Frank Frazetta.
Non, je pense pas que je suis si talentueux que ça. I don't think I'm that good.
Yeah, he has
Um,
some sort of gift. That guy.
Ooh, yeah, he was. Well, I'd argue he was like the Bach of fantasy art or something.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
if that makes
something
any
like that.
sense, but
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. So Alex Toth, Frank Frazetta, looking at them and their art. Um, okay, it's because if I was to do something, I'd kind of want to stick with a short story and just to keep it like the first time, just keep it condensed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as a testing ground, a lot more condensed than Spirit Girl because you know, um, Spirit Girl is growing, as a story. Like it's getting bigger. It seems to me, and I like that. I'm following it, but it's just I don't. I think that's too ambitious for someone like me who's very rusty at drawing. Like my specialty was always trees and castles and knights and also uh, women. So like mostly in medieval garb, both men and women in medieval garb, and um, like I said, trees and castles. For some reason, I could draw a tree better than I could draw most other things, and also castles. Um, and the thing is, like I said, I find that it's easier to learn how to do something by looking at um, a pre-existing like piece of animation or like a story and just trying to trace over it and figure out how they did it and then make it my own. I don't know if that's a very good learning method, but it's how I generally learn. Um, I believe you once mentioned you learned something. You learned to an extent from Tintin, right?
Well, it's the first comics I read, so it informed like my idea of what a comic is. But I never spent time copying Tintin or anything like that.
Hmm.
It's probably more on the storytelling side, like the writing side, that Tintin has informed me in the sense that like I find Tintin is a lot about wonder, the wonder of the
Okay.
world, and that's definitely like something that I gravitate towards. Um,
Is, now I'm going to ask: is that why Spear Girl has such a like feels so much like a Tintin comic?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're seeing. I'd have to know. You'd maybe point out an example, but I don't know. It
Well,
might be that. I don't know.
it's like in the fields, like when Spirit Girl is going across those snow-swept fields at one point. I feel
Yeah,
like I'm looking at one of those Tintin bande dessinée, like because I've seen a few of those scenes in Tintin where he's racing across fields. Yeah, like that. It like the art looks exactly like the um, Tibet, Tibet scenes, and it's like because I've read the Tintin Tibet, O Tibet when I was a little boy, and I like when I saw Spirit Girl, I went, "Isn't this the same like a one for one?" Like is what I thought it was to an extent, but I could tell yours was done by a Canadian because it had a. I knew it was Canadian wilderness that you were drawing from, but
yeah,
I was also
right.
like, these are almost mirror images, and the stylistic, the storytelling, the direction of it. The only difference was one was during the day, one at night, and that was the thing. I'm not trying to flatter you. I'm just saying my brain immediately went back to that, and there was the same sense of
Yeah,
wonder, but
yeah,
because yours was at night, there's a darkness to it, which,
right. Yeah.
like I
Well,
said,
thank you
I've
for something.
reread Spirit Girl one a few.
Yeah.
I've
No,
reread Spirit Girl one a few times.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, you're probably picking up on something. So, to me, wonder is closely associated with dread. So, whereas Tintin, the wonder of Tintin is more like a daytime thing, like a
Mhm.
daytime wonder, whereas dread is more of a nighttime wonder. And I tend to lean a little bit more towards the dread than the wonder, but the wonder as well.
Um, I'm just making note of this. This could all be useful visually. Just taking notes because Dan's not here to take them for me.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so now Spirit Girl is sorry, like I know I want to discuss nothing but the production side of things, but my brain's
That's
just
fine.
going to Spirit Girl right now. Now with Spirit Girl, it really seems like it's Tintin in a way, like the vibe of it or the feeling of it meets Canada meets um, superheroes. You know what I mean? Like that seems like the kind of world you've built. And is it? It seems like it's half purposeful, half just instinct. Is that correct?
So the Canada part is on purpose. So Northland is meant to be like the mythic overlay on Canada, and
And
if people subscribe to my Substack, soon I'm going to start to have, I think, a series of five, I think, articles, five ish articles about kind of all that, like how the dimension of the mythic is real and interweaves with the mundane dimension. So my storytelling is focused on highlighting this reality of the mythic dimension in our most mundane of worlds called modern, modernity. So, so it's Canada, but it's not a one for one parallel. Okay, this place represents Montreal, that place represents Winnipeg. It's
no,
not like
no,
that.
no, it's not one for one.
It's the
I understand.
mythic reality we can go visit with our imagination, right?
Yeah.
It's more of an intuitive representation of what Canada might be in the mythic dimension. So that's deliberate. And then the Tantan thing, I think, just probably comes up because I grew up on that. And then the third thing you mentioned, the third thing, which the superhero thing. The superhero thing, of course, because I like the superhero genre, and my view, superhero is the fantasy genre, just set in a different time and location. So it's contemporary and urban rather than medieval and rural, which is the fantasy genre. Like I think that those are the roots of it. Like for instance, Lord of the Rings is the is a more or less medieval adventure of rural people, the people from
Yeah,
the Shire, right, that represents rurality. And I'm
which
going
is
to bring the rural urban thing into my series. That's a big deal. Um, so I'm blending those specifically to explore the the touch point of the urban and the rural and the contemporary and the medieval kind of.
mm. I wonder when it comes to your to Spirit Girl and Northland. Um, when it comes to producing this, um, you're at issue 3, I think it is, or issue 5. You said
So I'm currently drawing, penciling issue 4.
okay. So and how fast, like how long does it take for each step of the process? Like, if you don't mind my asking.
Yeah, so that's fine, and I don't mind. Love to talk about this stuff. Um, so when while I'm penciling a book, uh,
Mhm.
so I have like a 30 issue plan for Spirit Girl. God willing, that will be what I do for the rest of my life, but we'll see.
Yay!
If I get told to take a left turn, I will, But
I hope you
so
spend the rest of your life doing this
that'd be nice. But so
because
the I have the basic ideas of what the beats are going to be over the next several issues. Um, so while I'm penciling one book, I've got the basic idea of what the subsequent books are going to be. So whenever, like, I don't know, I draw a page that's got a lot of detail and my hand gets sore, I take a break and I write on the next issue, right? So that's sort of happening simultaneously. And then the penciling is what takes the longest because you're taking your time to get it down as right as you can, and you're going back and forth between the pages, erasing stuff, adding details, redrawing panels. You want to try to get that pretty solid um, to before you go to inking. But in between the finished writing the scripts, I don't write full script. I write in page by page beats. I do the thumbnailing, and thumbnailing looks like this. So it's writing again, right? But in this
Mhm.
chicken scratch style.
Oh, oui.
Okay.
Je vois.
So it's I've got this. I've got the page by page beats, and then I thumbnail roughly how I want to lay out each of those pages. So I'm kind of writing the story again, and then when I go to pencil, then I put down my layouts and it'll modify from my thumbnail. So I'm kind of writing a third time. And then once everything is penciled, which takes a long time because, I can work on this a couple hours a day is all I got, right? I work full time. I go to the gym. I have marriagely duties, right? Like I have, and I have, other interests. I read books and I got a podcast and I got, that's so
I
it's
have no
about a
idea how
couple.
you find time for all that.
Well, I was not graced with the privilege and honor of having children, so this is what I do, right? So
Mm.
the uh, and also like I just keep going. And I'm also like at the privilege of my job is not too hard. It's honest work, but it's not hard. I don't have a commute, so like this is all can time and energy I can salvage. But then once everything is spent penciled, that takes several months. So for instance, these are the first pencils that I started. I put down was January 14 of this year. So I've still got 8 pages left to pencil, right? So you
Mhm.
got February, March, uh, April. It's gonna go into May, I think. So it's 4 months of penciling, right? And then I put my inks down, and inks is fun because it goes quicker than the pencils because you're following your pencils and making adjustments and stuff. So the inks would probably take me a page a day, so I could probably finish it in a month, right? So we're going into month 5, and then I scan everything and I put it in Photoshop or InDesign, whatever it is that I'll put it in Photoshop and I do like boost contrast and that sort of thing. If there's a stain on the page, I'll erase it. That sort of business. And then in Adobe InDesign, I do my lettering in there, and I can do several pages a day of lettering, so I can finish that in
Will
a
be
couple.
InDesign.
Adobe InDesign, that's what I find is best for lettering. A lot of people do Adobe Illustrator. I prefer InDesign because I used to work at a newspaper, and we were I'm like very familiar with the shortcut keys for Adobe InDesign. And then, but this one, so then I'd be more or less ready to put it in pages, make sure everything looks good, add logos and all this graphic design stuff. Put in a crossword puzzle. Each issue of Spirit Girl is going to have a crossword puzzle or some kind of puzzle. And but this time I'm going to take some more time to color. I think just to see how it goes. I want to try it at least because at that point, if I can become good at coloring, then I would have the penciling, the inking, the lettering, the coloring, the pagination, layout, graphic design, printing, stapling, trimming. I'll have the whole suite of comic production skills, right? And then if I want to be a for hire guy, I'll have the complete suite of skills. So expect at least attempts at coloring Spirit Girl 4, but we'll see how it goes. I'm fortunate that I have access to a color expert. My wife's a fine artist, so she knows how to build a palette and all that. So that'll be interesting. Bring her in as a collaborator, like a consultant on color.
You
So
should.
yeah, oh
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
I wouldn't dare not do that. Like it's just she. I really like my strength is in composition and the black and white, like deciding where the blacks go and that sort of thing. But like
Mm.
I wouldn't dare do it without consulting her.
Oh, I just remembered there might be another comic I think I can try the tracing technique with. My favorite manga, Vagabond. The guy did it all black and white and did most of the stuff like what you did. Like, you know what I mean? He started off almost with nothing and just learned every phase of the job almost as he went, doing Musashi's sword adventures that way. And it's, I would argue, the best drawn manga in history, but it doesn't look like that typical big-eyed manga style. He made them, the characters, look hyper realistic, like Asians,
Yeah,
and um, and whatnot. And he even painted large segments rather than drawing because he liked painting eventually. And then he sketch other parts and try to then paint over it, whatnot. And at one point tried to learn how to paint with his feet to see if he could shake it up, which is a little weird. I think he was like you, just had that, I got to try this now, I got to try that now. So I'm just thinking maybe looking at his manga, just there might be things to learn from a similar mind as yours and how to step by step do this thing and whatnot. Um, I have one BD from a guy I met at a convention, and that's there were a bunch of 60-year-old men or 70-year-old men who 40 years ago they didn't know how to do comics, so they taught themselves how to do it without the internet, step by step. And now here I'll try finding it. Now they're amongst the best sellers in France. They mostly do Normandy oriented stories or historic fiction or folklore stuff. I think it's this one. Um, and it's not a very big volume, this one. It's really good. Um, like their stuff looks really good. But they told me about how when they first started, they didn't have much. They didn't know much about this business. So I'm thinking I might take a look at this and see how they do it for the backgrounds, but and try to learn from that, as well as this is another reason I want to stay in France if I'm to do any kind of comic work, is because there's still buildings which are like from um, like almost the year 900. So like, you know what I mean? If you want to find inspiration for something with medieval fiction or fantasy, I could just go down the street and I could find a building that's older than what Canada
yeah,
is. And there's even some buildings here in France which are older than England and Scotland.
yeah,
And because France is a very, very old country, one of the oldest, I think, in Europe and in the world. So it's
yeah,
got some of the most intact ruins, like from the Roman period, the Celtic period almost, before Rome popped in. There's there's buildings that are so freaking old. It's just like just even in some of the local areas I live in. which just I've got more than I think 2,000 pictures on my phone, which I've taken, so that I can try to move it onto my computer, so that I can later try drawing. Like I've got Chinon, which I have every angle of a castle, like from every. It's the ruins of a castle, but I've taken every angle of the
Yeah.
interiors and the exteriors to try to later sketch. Um, Interesting fun fact: I think some of these ruins were used in the production or of maybe movies like Dragonheart and whatnot. I suspect because there were ruins. Like when I went to the castle, I saw parts of the castle, and I went, "Didn't I see that in one of the as one of the background, like in the background of Dragonheart?" But they said they only produced the film in Italy, but I saw, like parts of Chinon which looked a lot like it. Oh, one second. My roommate's home. I'll just say hi real quick.
Okay. Um, Hello, everybody. I'm Ulysses from Comics Odyssey. Um, Check out my Substack, comicsodyssey.substack.com.
Okay. My roommate's doing well. I just like to check in on her because she works long hours. Anyways, um, now as for this Mavois, so I've asked you about what would be good for learning from. Um, is is there any part of the process? I think you already said something about this, but that's your um, favorite part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I like all the process, except the digital stuff is maybe less what I like. It's like
Mm,
parts in front of a computer, and it's also
same.
it's getting to the end of the project and it's more tedious. I kind of
Mm,
feel like I want to get into the creative juices of the next issue, but I still like it. Um, but I would say my my favorite is probably the inking because the penciling takes so long, and it feels by the end of it sometimes it's a slog because it's like, okay, one page, but you're still not done, and one page and you're still not done, and so on. But then you get to the inking, which adds contrast, and it adds finality because pencils is very evocative. You have several lines that make up one line, but the ink like decides, that okay, it's going to be here. This line runs here, and that line runs there, and it's
mhm,
like finishes the page, right? And then you erase all your pencils, and like, wow, it's a real page, and it's very rewarding, and it happens like quickly compared because you
mhm,
just came out of a penciling, which is a very slow process, a lot of patience and discipline required, and then the inking, you still requires patience and discipline, but it happens more quickly because you're not doing layouts, you're not erasing and going back too much. So I would say the inking, just like it's when I do the inks, sometimes you go down to do the inks and it's like, oh, I'm nervous because ink is permanent, right? It's like, and then
mm.
you look at the thing and you look, no, it actually comes out okay. Like, and then you get a like a charge of encouragement from it, right?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
admit when it comes to writing, I like. But here I used a piece of paper for some writing here.
yeah,
So like I prefer to write on either scrap paper or I have a bunch of notebooks. Which when I took them out at the cafe with my one friend who's a historian, I took out this bundle that's this large of notebooks, just and it made that sound like, and you just had him jumping and going, "You're going to work on all of that?" Yeah, and take the first notebook, crack open, pull out the pen, start writing. I prefer that part than even copying it onto computer and then having to edit, add more paragraphs because I always add for each paragraph. I try to add like 3 to 6 new paragraphs so that there's the tail balloons because each new paragraph, each new description and detail adds layers to the world and whatnot as a writer. But the thing is, I don't. I'm liking working on a computer less and less because it seems passive. I don't know if that's the right term. Like, you're just stuck in front of a computer and you're having to type and click away, and then um, you have to just come on, Zil. You have to then send it to an editor, get it edited, and it just feels like a more passive thing than aggressively writing at a you know what I mean, like a story. And I have a friend here who said a computer feels more distant for creatives because it's not flowing directly from your fingertips, and you need that physical
Less
touch.
less physical. Yeah, exactly. Less
Yeah,
of the physical part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I like the physical part. I like sketching, and this was always the problem that actually Don told me once. Don Bluth, just to be clear, when I went to stay with him for a week, he said, "I'm much better uh, at like the physical sketching," he said, than the on computer photoshopping. And he told me that bluntly that um, you have talent, but you'd have been better off in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with my crew back then, Joseph, than today's animation period. Because he said, you're like, he wasn't being mean, but he said, if I was to transplant you and put you in the 80s or 90s with my crew back then, you'd make it because you'd just be drawing all day and writing. You'd be happy. I'd worry about your back because you're always bent over your drawing desk. But he said, but you have talent and you'd be, you know, just drawing. And you could do that physically. But the problem is with you is we need people to also work on the computer, and you're hopeless. You have no talent with the computer, with the drawing thing, because you don't have any enthusiasm. That's your problem. You have no talent at this, at that side of it. So you're not going to make it. He just bluntly said you're not going to make it in the industry today because you just don't have it in you to do the computer side. He said you can do the tracing and the sketching and the whatnot, but you're never going to do the other thing. And he did have me just for fun do the animation thing where you can do the book thing of flip and see the character moving and whatnot. Yeah, he did that with me, and it was really fun. But he said, "See, you're enjoying that, but you're not enjoying the it on the computer screen as much. That's your
Yeah.
problem. You're not built for the modern, like for this computer period." And like I tried to argue a little, but I was, like after a few minutes, I realized I actually liked doing the flip thing than the computer thing because the computer thing felt so far away. I don't know if that's the right term, but I think it's
Yeah.
like that for even drawing and whatnot. I've only got a few drawings on my computer that I've touched up. Generally, I touch it all up with eraser and pencil and draw and flip to the next page. Um, okay, I thought I was just the lone guy who doesn't like the computer stuff anymore. It's a little comforting to know. No offense to me, you seem very knowledgeable about this stuff, and it's interesting to know that even you find computers a little more. I don't want to say off-putting, but like there's 3 degrees of separation. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if that's a sentence that makes any sense, but
Yep.
or 7 degrees of separation. I forget. But um, as far as uh, comics go, um, is there like okay? So we've discussed the production thing. When it comes to stapling, um, what exactly do you mean by stapling? Like
Oh,
gluing the book together?
yeah. I use a long arm stapler to
Oh,
staple my books together. Yeah.
so you use a what stapler?
A long arm stapler.
Oh, yeah, I see. Je. 'Cheval. 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 ' Okay. Um, and um, and now with inking, that's not going to be something I'm ever going to. Je ne vais jamais pouvoir faire moi-même because I'm at coloring. I can never color within a line. So okay. Um, how many sketches do you actually use, real quick, per
How many
image?
sketches do I? Oh, well, per panel, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, um, usually it's just one, but here and there, if it's a complicated thing, I might try a pass in my sketchbook. But yeah, mostly just put it right on after my thumbnails, and if it doesn't look right, I erase and I try it again.
Okay. So you don't like draw the image in pieces. Like what I mean is like draw the one piece of the background, then draw the character, draw this, and draw that, and then just bring it together into a single sketched image.
No, everything goes on the page. Uh, so I tend to draw the foreground first, um, or the figures, because the figures are generally what the
The focus.
subject of the panel is, and then yeah, foreground and background, wherever.
Um,
Yeah,
I tend to try to I try to make I lose myself in every detail, so I always try to
yeah,
do this, that, then that, and the image gets out of control for me. Or like I don't know. That's always been how I did things, and I got in trouble for that in animation school for doing that. But then I found out, to an extent, we're supposed to do that, but we're always supposed to not all on the same page in animation. Like you have to draw everything separate, then you trace everything together onto one single image, so that you any mistakes you make are on separate pages, not the final page, and whatnot.
right, right.
But
Yeah,
then I yeah, I've yeah,
I use my
eraser.
undo button a lot.
Yeah, Don would have a fit. I'm joking. Well, actually, he would say no erasing. I want you all on separate pages. But then with himself, we saw him drawing. He at one point just does it, and
That's animation.
yeah. But he ended up saying, "Well, no, I wanted to teach you good habits. So it's okay for me to do this, but I don't want you to do it because you need to develop the right habits. Then you can go and screw up and fix it with an eraser like I do.
Right.
You need to slowly learn the right habits because if you learn the bad habits right now, you're never going to learn any good habits.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand.
uh, um, sorry if I refer a lot to animation. It's just that was my biggest influence artistically in some ways. When it comes to the visual mediums, it's just I refer everything back to what Bluth taught me because he was a wellspring of knowledge and wisdom,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
with
no,
writing,
it's interesting.
because he's also a very talented writer and nearly became a novelist, but he didn't. And a lot of his movie scripts that of those Don Bluth movies, he wrote. He even ghost wrote a few because they'd hire a writer, the writer wouldn't want to do it, and he'd write it, and the writer would just go and claim credit sometimes. So he was a talented writer, and so like uh, a lot of what I'm also discussing is can be found in his memoirs, which he wrote, which he spilled all of his knowledge of his technique and his style of writing and drawing and reading as well in there. So I'm not trying to plug that. It's just I read it during over the course of a few days when I was with him, and got to chat with him about it. And um, he's like I said, he's a wellspring of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to drawing and writing. Um, So I just figure I'd pump you up for questions. So when it comes to printing, um, not to seem too stupid, but what do you mean by printing? Do you like?
Yeah, so I got a pretty small production. Like I don't, I'm not like a big publisher or anything like that. I think Spirit Girl 3 sold about 10, 12 copies. So I got to keep it realistic and small. I have a printer at home that I print everything on, and,
Mm.
and trim the pages, I staple everything together. So basically, somebody buys an issue of Spirit Girl, I print it, I make it that day, and then I send it off. So that's what I mean for printing. Yeah.
It's almost like that for Crown of Blood, um, which like most of our sales were for author copies. So people would send in money, and we print it out and ship it. Although for us, it's about over 300 copies, um, which the average novel sells about 12 copies. Bestseller is 100. I figure 300 means we've done a pretty damn good job. Um,
Sure.
but I want to aim to add another three zeros to that for sales at some point
Yeah,
because that's the goal. But
that's
I
right.
don't know if it'll ever, like if our works will ever get that big. But as you said, just have to be a nice enough guy and just keep working at this. And if God willing, that we'll be able to do that for the rest of our lives.
Mhm.
Um, but it's in His hands, not in ours. Je sais pas si ça fait du sens. Ça.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect sense to me. Yeah.
okay. Um, okay. I just figured I'd ask about the production stuff.
Hmm.
Now, I am curious. Now, I know you've got Spirit Girl, but and whatnot, and she's available for different means. But I'm kind of curious: would you ever go the web, not the web comic route with a different story as an experiment, and then print it out
Yeah.
as an actual comic?
Well, I did do a short story, like a 3 pager, very very
Mhm.
early on in my Substack, where it's like stacked panels.
Mhm.
It's called I think Adventures of a Time Traveling Jehovah's Witness or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
So,
Oh my gosh!
and yeah, just a short semi autobiographical book, sort of. Um, but yeah, but that was very early on. Um, for me, I like the page. I like page design. So for now, I want to
Mhm.
stick to that. But yeah, as an experiment, maybe at some point for another short story, I might be interested in doing that. Yeah.
All right. Oh, I just remembered. I think I did experiment once with comics. I always forget. It's where um, I had planned to do something like Peanuts, and it was basically with a dog, a wizard, and their neighbor who's a dragon, who's trying to retire from dragon work, and that was it. But I don't remember where I put that. I had like I think 60 joke comics done, and I just misplaced. You know what I mean? Like I misplaced the file on computer. Is
Oh.
does that ever happen to you? Like no,
Oh no, I'm very well. I've
tidy.
lost I've lost some stuff from when I was a musician. I've lost access to
Um,
account stuff. But for my comics, I put it in a lot of different places. I have an external hard drive. I have the laptop. I have a cloud, so it's in multiple places. So
it's
I
properly saved.
yeah, it's
Okay.
so much work, man. I'm trying to be careful. I store my pages in a different area than where all my inks are, so I don't spill on them. And
Okay. Well, maybe I should just, for funsies, try finding those and posting them on. Substack just to see what happens.
Yeah.
None of it was very good. It was all done with Photoshop, and it was very, I don't want to say mediocre, but like it was just not great. But I don't know. Maybe I'll just try doing it. It was like an attempt at Garfield and Peanuts, and just trying to do that with fantasy and make fun of day to day stuff in fantasy all at once. But and make a lot of coffee jokes for some reason. I don't know why. I think I was hopped up on coffee at the time, but yeah. Um, when it comes to this stuff, um, now I will ask. Like um, it seems to me like I'm an outsider looking in. Um, the fiction communities are really struggling on Substack, but it seems like the comics uh, community and whatnot on Substack is going a lot more solid. You know what I mean? Like it's going a lot stronger than the fiction community is. Um, I don't know what you think of that. Like, why do you think that is?
Well, first, my answer is I'll have to go to work in a few minutes. Just to let you know, I
Okay,
don't. Sorry,
yeah,
I don't mean to cut it short, but yeah, I'll have to
no,
go to
no,
work.
no, it's okay.
Um, yeah, so maybe just a few more minutes. Yeah, I don't really pay attention to like the scene, I guess.
I don't
Um,
know.
but the thing is with comics, uh, making a comic book, it's so difficult, and it takes so long versus the amount of time it takes to read. That there's nobody really making comics because it's easy or a way to get rich. There's not a lot of tourists who make comic books because the 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 grind of making a comic weeds out those people. So the people that are
Yeah,
left who make comics are there because they love comics, right?
yeah.
There's not a lot
I'll
of
be honest.
fans,
Yeah,
right?
that's why I'm nervous about plunging into this. I'm being very circumspect and careful. It's because this is very. I'm going to be honest. It's very difficult to make um, a comic. I have more experience making video games, animation, and even novels than this stuff, and it
Yeah.
seems not as time consuming as making a video game. Which, no offense, I think is the longest. It takes the most amount of time to make a video game. But it seems like it'd be easier just to make an animation than a comic because animation, at least for me, I thought it was a lot smoother and easier to do than any kind of comic when I tried experimenting with this peanut style stuff. Um, which, um, as to comics, uh, do you tend to actually stick your stuff on other websites?
No, mostly I stick to Substack. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm on Substack. I've abandoned all the other social media. Um, I um, I have my website, comicsodyssey.ca, where I sell my
Mm.
stuff. And there's a website once I'm done selling the physical copies, then I upload everything for free, and I do that on Substack and also on Comic Fury. But I don't pay attention really to like the stats or anything. I don't. They have
Yeah,
forums and stuff there. I'm not part of that. I put it there, and if people want to read it, I read it. But I put a page in between the comics that's a blank page. That just says go to my Substack. Everything's on my Substack. Yeah.
okay. I figured I'd ask because I don't know anything about that stuff, and I think that I should ask because um, when it comes to comics, I know that there are other websites where you can stick stuff on and whatnot. Figured I'd ask, and because it's interesting to me, but it's also um, it seems something that one has to learn through trial and error with these websites, like having your own website, having like DeviantArt or whatever the hell is out there, or whatever the hell the Japanese are doing, because they're just doing it very well online. Um, Patreon or Substack or whatever. Um, as for writing, it seems like there's mostly web novel sites and like Royal Road web novel and Substack, and that's almost it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, then again, it might be interesting to try doing an audio thing, like an audio reading or something of Spirit Girl, where where someone does a voice of Spirit Girl or of this character or that, and the narration, and you have next panel, like just slowly doing that in a video and putting that on, I don't know, YouTube. I don't know if you thought about that. It just occurred to me
Yeah, I've seen
that
those.
might be
They
interesting.
call them motion comics or something like that.
Oh yeah,
No, I haven't
so
thought
that's what
about
it's
that.
called.
It's I'm handling a lot of duties: writing, drawing, production,
Hmm.
marketing. Insofar as I do market, social media, whatever. Um, yeah, that's I got to be realistic, with my time and.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah,
Well, who knows? Maybe if I make a million bucks, I'll be able to help make that motion comic.
yeah, I'll
That
take a
actually,
million bucks.
sure. Um, and all right, thanks, Ulysses. I appreciate. Someone said hello in the chat. Hello from Ranthead. I didn't even notice because I had the thing maxed. Anyways, I hope this has been informative to everyone. I know I have learned a ton, and I have a bunch of notes now. I've actually got 2 pages of notes that I'm going to be looking into and studying in greater detail so I can start learning from this stuff. And I'm going to have to tomorrow look into buying a sketchbook again to start sketching again. Um, then or Friday, but I don't have much time on Friday because I have a date then. But anyways, I guess, thank you again for coming on the show. I definitely
Thanks for the
appreciate.
invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it even more. Like I said, I know like this is stuff I should have retained from your other podcasts, but there's something different. I don't know if it makes sense about asking someone and taking notes as they're
Of course.
calling you, interacting. But anyways, I'll wish you the very best. Good luck at work, and I hope your wife's doing well. And I'm going to recommend everyone go subscribe to Ulysses. I will be putting the link to his Substack in the description on my Substack post when this comes out as a video, and encourage everyone to go to his stack and yeah, and wish you the very best. So, oh, and I'm also going to tell everyone to go buy Spirit Girl because for heaven's sake, 15 sales. Come on, guys, like you can do better than that. You're supposed to be buying it en masse. Turn it into a bestseller. Damn it,
Yeah, people can read
Spirit
issue
Girl.
1 and 2 digitally for free, and then if they want to, they can buy this one here, which is still for sale
Mm,
for a bit. So, and there's a crossword in the back, so
which I'm going to need.
you get your money's worth. Uh,
Yeah,
is is how it looks inside.
looks great.
Yeah. I'm having a great time. Um,
Yeah.
issue 5, we're going into Harry Bear, the town of Harry Bear. So
So
it's gonna get interesting.
I Spirit Girl. Um, and until next time, everyone.